Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachadi Yamuna Tiravanachadi Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Bodhirajapacharya Ashtotara Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Bodhirajapacharya Ashtotara Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru, Shri Gauranga. Hare Krishna. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, entitled The Creative Impetus, Chapter 5, Lord Rishabhadev's Teachings, on text 9. So if everybody could please repeat after me. Yada Manaha Hridya Grantihi Asya Karma Anubaddaha Didaha Ashleteta Tada Janaha Samparivartate Asmat Muktaha Param Yati Atihaya Hetum Yada Mano Hridaya Grantir Asya Karmanubadho Drida Ashlateta Tada Jana Samparivartate Smad Mukta Param Yat Yatihaya Hetum Yada Mano Hridaya Grantir Asya Karmanubadho Drida Ashlateta Tada Jana Samparivartate Smad Mukta Param Yat Yati Haya Hetum Yadamano Hridaya Grantir Asya Karmanubadho Drida Ashlateta Tada Jana Samparivartate Smad Mukta Param Yat Yati Haya Hetum Ida, when, Manaha, the mind, Hridaya Grantihi, the knot in the heart, Asya, of this person, Karma Anubadaha, bound by the results of his past deeds, Dridaha, very strong, Ashleteta, becomes slackened, Tada, at that time, Janaha, the conditioned soul, Samparivartate, turns away, Asmat, from this attachment for sex life, Muktaha, liberated, Param, to the transcendental world, Yati, goes, Atihaya, giving up, Hetum, the original cause. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, HG Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. When the strong knot in the heart of a person implicated in material life, due to the results of past action, is slackened, one turns away from his attachment to home, wife, and children. In this way, one gives up the basic principle of illusion, I and mine, and becomes liberated. Thus one goes to the transcendental world. Purport. When, by associating with sadhus and engaging in devotional service, one is gradually freed from the material conception due to knowledge, practice, and detachment, the knot of attachment in the heart is slackened. Thus one gets freed from conditional life and becomes eligible to return home back to Godhead. Should we read the purport again? It's a short purport. When by associating with sadhus and engaging in devotional service, one is gradually freed from the material conception due to knowledge, practice, and detachment, the knot of attachment in the heart is slackened. Thus one can get freed from conditional life and become eligible to return home, back to Godhead. Om Jnanatipidandasya Karanjana Shilakya Chakshulanvaditamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Kam Karitvachalam Pangam Langa Tegadim Yakripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Diditadanam Vancha Kapadrubishta Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gauda Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'll read the translation again. When the strong knot in the heart of a person implicated in material life, due to the results of past action, is slackened, one turns away from his attachment to home, wife, and children. In this way, one gives up the basic principle of illusion, I and mine, and becomes liberated. Thus one goes to the transcendental world. So in the Adi Leela, chapter 1, text 59, Tuto duk sangam utsuja satsu sajje tu buddhiman santa evasya chindanti mano vyas sangam uktibi. So it says, one should therefore avoid bad company. This is Krishna speaking to Uddhava in the Uddhava Gita, the 11th canto, chapter 26, text 26. One should therefore avoid bad company and associate only with devotees. With their realized instructions, such saints can cut the knot connecting one with activities unfavorable to devotional service. So they cut chindanti, they cut off mana vyasangam, the opposing attachments within one's mind. So by the instructions of the sadhus or the saintly persons, it will have the effect, it should have the effect on us of cutting the attachments within our mind. We see here that in this particular chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Rishabhadev's teachings, he's speaking to his sons, and he's the guru. Traditionally, right, in some sense, in a sense, in an important sense, the father would be accepted as the spiritual master, not Diksha, but spiritual master, but instructing spiritual master. So Rishabhadev is instructing his sons here, and before he leaves home, and he's instructing them strongly. Some of the verses here in this fifth canto, fifth chapter, they're strong verses. So I'll just read the verses we've read up to now. We're on today 9, just to have a recap of what Rishabhadev has been telling his sons. So Lord Rishabhadev told his sons, which he's cutting, he's the attached sadhu. Lord Rishabhadev told his sons, "My dear boys, of all the living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form should not work hard, day and night, simply for sense gratification. which is available even for dogs and hogs that eat stool. One should engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified, and when one attains this position, he attains eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness, and which continues forever. One can attain the path of liberation from material bondage only by rendering service to highly advanced spiritual personalities. These personalities are impersonalists and devotees. Whether one wants to merge into the Lord's existence or wants to associate with the personality of Godhead, one should render service to the Mahatmas. For those who are not interested in such activities, who associate with people fond of women and sex, the path to hell is wide open. The Mahatmas are equipoised. They do not see any difference between one living entity and another. They are very peaceful and are fully engaged in devotional service. They are devoid of anger and they work for the benefit of everyone. They do not behave in any abominable way. Such people are known as Mahatmas. Those who are interested in reviving Krishna consciousness and increasing their love of Godhead do not like to do anything that is not related to Krishna. They are not interested in mingling with people who are busy maintaining their bodies, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. They are not attached to their homes, although they may be householders. Nor are they attached to wives, children, friends, or wealth. At the same time, they are not indifferent to the execution of their duties. Such people are interested in collecting only enough money to keep the body and soul together. Got a few more here. When a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, he certainly becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activity. He does not know that due to his past misdeeds he has already received a body which, although temporary, is the cause of his misery. Actually, the living entity should not have taken on a material body, but he has been awarded the material body for sense gratification. Therefore, I think it is not befitting an intelligent man to involve himself again in the activities of sense gratification, by which he perpetually gets material bodies, one after another. As long as one doesn't inquire about the spiritual values of life, parabhavastavadabodajato, one is defeated and subjected to miseries arising from ignorance. But be it sinful or pious, karma has its resultant actions. If a person is engaged in any kind of karma, his mind is called karmatmaka, colored with fruit of activity. As long as the mind is impure, consciousness is unclear, and as long as one is absorbed in fruit of activity, he has to accept a material body. When the living entity covered by the mode of ignorance is covered by the mode of ignorance, he does not understand the individual living being and the supreme living being, and his mind is subjugated to fruit of activity. Therefore, until one has love for Lord Vasudeva, who is none other than myself, he is certainly not delivered from having to accept a material body again and again. Okay. Even though one may be very learned and wise, he is mad if he does not understand that the endeavor for sense gratification is a useless waste of time. Being forgetful of his own interests, he tries to be happy in the material world, centering his interest around his home, which is based on sexual intercourse. Like Srila Prabhupada one time said, he was meeting with, there was an Indian man, and the man said, "This is my wife, and this is my children, and this is their wife and their children." He was introduced in a large family to Srila Prabhupada. And, it's kind of normal. You could say that's a lot of people do. Oh, this is my kids and their kids. And he was doing that. And in this particular case, Prabhupada turned to one of his disciples and he said, practically this man is saying, "This is my sex life," Anyways. What is it? Yeah, the guy didn't hear it. Yeah, he said confidentially to one of his disciples, expansions of sex life, and which brings him all kinds of miseries. In this way, one has being forgetful of his own interests, he tries to be happy in the material world, centering his interests around his home, which is based on sexual intercourse, and which brings him all kinds of material miseries. In this way, one is no better than a foolish animal. All right, so yesterday's verse and then today's verse. The attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. On the basis of this misconception, one ties together the hearts of the male and female. On the basis of this misconception, which ties together the hearts of the male and female, one becomes attracted to his body, home, property, children, relatives, and wealth. In this way, one increases life's illusions and thinks in terms of I and mine. When the strong nard in the heart of a person implicated in material life due to the results of past action is slackened, one turns away from his attachment to home, wife, and children. In this way, one gives up the basic principle of illusion, I and mine, becomes liberated. Thus, one goes to the transcendental world. So there's a lot of there's a lot of things to become bewildered by within this material world. And as Lord Rishabhadev saying to his sons here, all the verses we just read, he's saying that, my dear boys, you have to be careful. There's a lot of traps within this material world. And things that will divert our attention from that which is important, Krishna consciousness. Means to being Krishna consciousness, being Krishna conscious, giving Krishna consciousness to others. There's many things to divert us. And sometimes, like we were mentioning some time ago in the class, I was mentioning how there was this very nice person, lady and her daughter. They were coming to the temple often, like every Sunday. And then I didn't see them for years, I don't know, 10 years, something like that. And then they just show up one day. And I said, oh, hey, so did you move? Or, nice to see you again, did you move? And she said, oh, no, we just became busy with my daughter. Going through middle school, high school, now she's in college. And I said, wow, that was kind of a long time. It was 10 years or something like that. She goes, oh, yeah, that's true. It has been 10 years. So sometimes, now of course, I'm not commenting, or maybe she was, worshiping Krishna and focusing on Krishna, and who knows. But sometimes in cases people just get diverted, sidetracked, and they just, oh, what happened? They wake up and 10 years later, 20 years later, you have that whole pastime of Narada Muni, right? Which I'm kind of forgetting right now, but hopefully I remember to some degree, or somebody else remembers. But the pastime of Narada Muni, where he wanted to, there's something about him wanting to see the illusory energy. So then he went down to the local river to fetch. Oh, Mark, okay. I heard the one in Narada Muni, I think Bhakti Sundar. But he went to go fetch water, and then while he was down there fetching water, what happened is he saw a very beautiful woman. Yeah. And in this particular case, he became attracted. And of course, this is all, it's Narada Muni, of course. He anyways, teaching us. But he becomes attracted, and he marries her, and there's all these, this and that, and and then all of a sudden, there's something where Krishna he arranges some catastrophe that, okay, the wife dies, the children die, this and that, and Narada Muni is lamenting, and then somehow Krishna appears, and he goes, Narada Muni, what's going on? Oh, my wife, this and that, and just and he's saying your wife and and your children, and what are you talking about? You said, what happened to my water? You just come. I mean, you're supposed to come. You're supposed to go and get me some water. What happened to you? Kind of got sidetracked. Narada Muni realized, So there's all different types of cases where people have just become sidetracked and derailed, right, from the path. So here, Rishabhadev is Lord Rishabhadev is telling his sons to what to watch out for, what to be careful about, and he's saying that one, okay, don't work like hogs and dogs who eat all types of abominable things. So in other words, don't work so hard to the degree that spiritual life is pushed out. Is pushed out of the picture. In other words, we have to have time for spiritual life. And then he's saying that, so Dhamraj, you just missed this point. Don't work so hard, right? Like a hog or dog who eats all types of abominable things, to the degree where you forget spiritual life. You have to have time, some time, right, for spiritual life. So he's saying that. And then he's also mentioning how, in these particular verses, how a person who has material desires, if they're not able to transcend those material desires, if they're not able to overcome those material desires, then their mind will be colored with fruit of activity. Karmatmakam yena sharira bandhaha. And that produces another term, another prison term, another material body. Sometimes they say, right, this is like a prison suit, the material body. So get some more time. So therefore the idea is to overcome, to transcend these material desires. And these material desires, as Rishabhadev is mentioning here, they're revolving around this idea of I and mine, which is explained that I am this body, and everything in relation to this body is mine. And it's centering around the attraction between male and female, or this sex business, right? So for devotees, it's something that has to be conquered. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending has to be conquered. These are urges, right? Biological urges of the body, right? Urges of the mind, and they have to be conquered, controlled, and conquered. Because they are, and specifically Rishabhadev's talking here about the sex principle, it is a bewildering force in this material world. It's called Maitunya Agar, means the shackles of sex life, right? And the problem with it is that there's you could say Cupid, and then there's Krishna, right? So we're supposed to be attracted to Madan Mohan, right? Means the attractor of Cupid, Krishna. Not attracted to, you could say, Cupid's different arrangements, right, of this material world. So luckily we are in the association of Krishna, we're in the association of the devotees, and therefore we have some chance, we have some opportunity to get attracted to Madan Mohan, right, to the enchanter of Cupid. So we should try to take advantage of that. Now, what does it mean to take advantage of that? It means that although we're in the association of Madan Mohan, we're in the association of Madan Mohan's devotees, still we may fall prey to Maya, just like, for example, the Brahmin, what's his name? Krishna Das, traveling with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in South India. I mean, he's traveling with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How much better? It can't get any better than that, right? Traveling with the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, spreading the Sankirtan movement, and amazing. Chaitanya Charitamrita is absolutely amazing. inconceivably amazing book, Pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Krishnadas is traveling with them, and then he becomes bewildered. He becomes bewildered by the, what is it? Bhattataris, right? Gypsies. You know, women are there, attractive women, and so whatever else they're doing, intoxication or whatever. So he becomes attracted to the. I mean, it says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, he said he grabbed him by his hair, I guess it's Shika, grabbed him by his Shika and, pulled him out of that situation. He allowed him to travel with him, continuing, and then eventually they landed in Jagannath Puri, back in Jagannath Puri. But then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, practically, I don't want anything to do with this Krishnadas. But the devotees, Nityananda Prabhu and other devotees, they still gave him some service. What was the service they gave him? They send him, send him to Bengal to take messages and to Mother Shachi. So very mercifully engage him. So this teaches us that even in the association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or his pure devotees or the devotees, still there could be some leaning or some bewilderment or losing focus or, from the path. So Prabhupada explains in that purport that unless one is determined to make advancement, unless this is the importance of determination, sometimes people wonder, what's the importance of determination? The importance of determination is extreme. It's Srila Prabhupada comments in this section, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita says, then unless one is determined to make progress in Krishna consciousness, to reach the goal, to stay on the path, then even the Supreme Personality of Godhead can't help them. In other words, one has to be determined. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, So they're saying that Prabhupada would quote, right? He quotes it in the Bhagavad Gita, God helps those who help themselves. So what does it mean to help ourselves? It means to put ourselves in a favorable situation for Krishna consciousness. To put ourselves in situations where we hear the messages of Krishna. Just like sometimes people say, I don't like hearing about Krishna. I just like chanting Hare Krishna. I mean, sometimes you hear to us, I'm a kirtan person. I don't really like to talk so much, or I'm a talk person. I really like the kirtan so much, or whatever. But they're both important because hearing and reading, Bhajanarayan Swami sent out that very nice excerpt from Srila Prabhupada about Prabhupada saying, tell devotees to read. It's very beautiful. What Prabhupada said. He said, I'm working so hard. I wish I knew exactly. I'm forgetting, but it said, in essence, he said, I'm working very hard. I'm getting up early and every morning. I'm wanting that all the devotees read my books. So please, he's asking devotees, please make time. Please read the books. So whether it's reading or whether it's hearing, Amala Bhakti Swami, he has all these nice audio. Anyways, we mentioned this the other day too. All the nice audio books. Keshav Bharti Goswami, apparently, he's reading all the Srila Prabhupada's books systematically, and that's going to be the BBT's official audiobooks for the BBT. So he's doing that. And you have other devotees, like you have this devotee, his name's Damodar. I think he lives in New Vrindavan or something, but he did a really nice recording of the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Thakur's. So whether it's hearing or whether it's audiobooks or reading or whether it's hearing lectures, there's full there's full opportunity these days. I mean, it's just like there's no lack of media out there. So it means to situate ourselves in a favorable position, whereas we could hear, right? Like Prabhupada said about Bombay Pandal, he said, there's like a huge arrangement, right? Shamasundar Prabhu with the whole, blimp, right? Is it blimp, or not blimp, balloon, right? Huge balloon in the sky, Hare Krishna, Cross Maidan, right? And they're printing all types of posters and flyers and trying to invite the whole of Bombay to this Bombay Pandal, right? where Srila Prabhupada was going to speak for 7 days. And Srila Prabhupada did. And thousands of people showed up every day, every morning, every evening, thousands of people. Right? Amazing. So there, once somebody asked Srila Prabhupada, oh, why did you make such elaborate arrangements to do this, right? You could have spent your money this way, that way. Why are you making such elaborate arrangements? And he said, I'm making such elaborate arrangements so that people will be given the opportunity to hear about Krishna, as the Prabhupada said. Opportunity to hear about Krishna. So what does this opportunity afford us? It says that one should therefore avoid bad company, associate only with devotees, with their realized instructions. With instructions, it says, such saints can cut the knot, because we're talking about knots here, connecting one with activities unfavorable to devotional service. In other words, they cut all the attachments, our strong attachments to this material world, the strong attachments in our mind. So if we don't put ourselves in a favorable position, we don't help ourselves by putting ourselves in a favorable position, then how can we get the knots cut? Then they're not going to be cut. They're going to be tight. I always think it's funny too, or interesting, because Rishabhadev here, he's saying that when man and women unite, and it is talking about more. Anyways, when they connect, right? It says that the hard knot is tied, right, in the heart. And I always think about, they have that a saying. I think it's an American saying, but when you get married, you're tying the knot, you know. It's kind of interesting. You know, tying the knot in the heart. That's kind of interesting. Or also that saying is, because it seems like it's American saying, maybe it came from somewhere else, but tying the knot. It's also, so I've heard that in Vedic wedding ceremonies, part of the ceremony is that man and the woman, right, they have their chadar and dhoti and sari, whatever, and they actually tie. They tie together, you know, tying the knot. So there's a lot of tying the knots, right, tying the sari and dhoti, tying the knot in American terminology. So, and then you have Rishabhadev here saying there's a hard knot. And so, of course, Prabhupada mentions in the purports here and in this section that just because one is married doesn't necessarily mean that you know, they're out of the game or something. like the Mayavadis in the Mayavadi sampradayas, it's like you have to be a sannyasi. I mean, you have to get the point of sannyas, and then there's some chance of, right. Of course, the whole thing we don't agree with and it doesn't make sense, but you know, then you become Narayan, right? Actually, they have a principle when when someone takes sannyas, another Mayavadi sannyasi will come up to that person and say, Om Namo Narayanaya Namaha, right? And they'll do that because it's understood. Okay, he took sannyas, now he's Narayan. Kind of strange, right? So, but within Krishna consciousness, yes, one can be a householder. But of course, these instructions are also good for householders in the sense that we have to be careful. That everyone has to be careful. That the hard knots in the heart, first of all, better just not to tie them. And then second, if they have become tied somehow or other, to try to cut them, right? And it's being mentioned here to hear from the devotees. It's a great way to have them cut. Now, of course, sometimes we don't want them cut. It's like, hey, I like these knots. You know, they're very kind of giving me some pleasure, and I kind of like them. Hey, back off. But we have to be open. And sometimes, you know, we may have to go through some suffering, actually, to have just the receptivity of kind of saying, all right, here, I have some knots. Go for it. You know, cut them. See what you could do. You know, asking a devotee to cut them. And just like this story of, because in the Uddhava Gita, there's a story, there's this pastime of, account of Pururava. In Pururava, he was very attached to who? Heavenly courtesan Urvashi. So that's a whole account, but I mean, talk about the knots being tied. I mean, he was extremely attached to her. And there's this whole thing, you know, she came from the heavenly planets, and of course, for a man who is not, you know, a pure devotee, or an advanced devotee, I mean, to not become attracted to such a woman as Urvashi, I mean, I mean, you have Arjun, right? I think it was in the heavenly planets. Arjun went to the heavenly planets, and then somehow Urvashi, I think, yeah, she came into the room and she wanted to, you know, be with him. And Arjun, he closed his eyes and he addressed her, Mataji, right? She became upset. She actually cursed him. You know, you become a eunuch, right? That's a whole other pastime. But Arjun had that power, actually. He was able to, you know. But Pururva, upon seeing Urvashi, he was just completely bewildered. And he said he enjoyed with her for so many years. And then eventually there's this whole thing where under certain conditions, if he broke certain conditions, then she would just leave. And then that's what happened. She left. Anyways, this whole thing, but then later, and then there was this whole arrangement that once a year she would come down to the heavenly planets and for like a day or something, and he was able to be with her, and then that went on for some times. But then eventually, he became detached. He said, "What am I doing? This is just, I'm spending all my time thinking about Urvashi and attached to her and these hard knots." And then he just became detached. And he sang this song, right? What's the song? Yeah, the Ayala Gita. It's a very beautiful section of the Bhagavatam, 11th canto. So, but in other words, his attachments, they did not cease immediately. He had a hard time, right? But he had to suffer some time, and then eventually he became detached. So, of course, if we become detached earlier, that's good. But those are some things to consider. So yeah, in conclusion, we want to associate with sadhus, engage in devotional service, and then gradually we'll be freed from material conception due to development of knowledge, due to our practice. So knowledge and practice, this detachment will be born, will arise within us, which doesn't mean, detachment doesn't mean suffering. Detachment means actually happiness. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojataha. By engaging in the devotional service of Krishna, automatically detachment and knowledge arises within one. And then one becomes freed from conditional life and experiences love for Krishna, which is the highest, right, achievement. So, all right, does anybody have any?
Hare Krishna?
Yeah, we'll just take a few comments and questions in-house, and then...
I can wait.
All right.
Okay. I had two questions, but I'll ask one first. One could argue, well, look, the king was so attached to Urvasi, but in due course, he burned out and became detached. So I'm got my hard knots, and I can't give them up now, but in due course, it'll happen. I'll burn out, just continue, and eventually I'll become detached. I'll burn out and become detached. So don't rush, don't push me, and I'll just follow my natural course, and I'll burn out and become detached.
Yeah.
When Krishna wants, when I have the will, it'll happen.
Yeah, all right. Well, I mean, it's not really, I mean, someone could try that, but it's not really our process. Yeah, it's not our process. Like, for example, there was this inauthentic guru, and he would say that, oh, you just kind of enjoy your senses, right? And then eventually, after enjoying your senses so much, you'll just become detached, right? He was a guy in India, I think it was South India, No, not South India. Anyways, but wherever he was. And then actually, when Prabhupada was in India, some people, Indians, and specifically some of the women of the wives of certain of these husbands who were practicing this guy's philosophy, they'd go to his ashram and whatever, God knows what, But they were complaining to Srila Prabhupada, oh, our husbands, they're following this guy, so just to burn out the senses. And in other words, all these husbands were just being licentious, just uncontrolled. And then Prabhupada said, oh, don't worry, I'll go to Pune and I'll drive him out personally. But anyways, on commenting on this person's philosophy, you just kind of let the senses go and just engage them as much as possible to eventually become burned out. And then Prabhupada said, oh, that must mean the pig is the greatest sannyasi, because he's just letting his senses go. Anyways, eventually Srila Prabhupada, he actually, in his manifest, pastimes here, he actually didn't make it to Pune. But then later devotees went to Pune, and that guy was still there. So then, apparently the guy was very antagonistic against ISKCON, and he was, saying all types of bad things. And the, news reporter, they're going back and forth, ISKCON to this guy, trying to stir things up. And he was saying some harsh things about Srila Prabhupada, criticizing him, this and that. And then eventually, shortly after that, he had some terrible disease that wrecked his body. And then he was like forced to leave Pune under certain circumstances. So we could see that indirectly, Srila Prabhupada said, oh, don't worry, I'll go to Pune and I'll force that person out. So indirectly, he did it through his disciples, and, he offended Srila Prabhupada. It's the whole thing. So, but yeah, that's not our philosophy, just to let the senses go wild and then we'll become detached. I mean, there is, like, for householder life, they say, oh, Srila Prabhupada would say it's license for sense gratification, some sense gratification. But it is supposed to be regulated under injunctions, under the spiritual master. And also, it's supposed to be an ashram, a place where one engages in Krishna consciousness. It's not like, oh, well, now I'm married, now I could just let my senses go wild and forget about my spiritual life. So the best is to just, akamo savakamo va moksha kamo dadaditi vrena bhakti yogena yajete purusham param, that, akama, we may have no material desires. Sarvakama, we may have all material desires. Moksha kama, we may be desirous of liberation. But whatever the case is, tivrena bhakti yogena yajete purusham param, we should engage intensely in the devotional service of Krishna. Now, I mentioned this last night. I was speaking with a few devotees, and one devotee brought up this point that, doesn't that kind of give us license that, hey, we got material desires, let's, go to Krishna, and he'll fulfill them all, and we lose sight, we just focus on the material desires. Krishna's like an order supplier, right? Just enjoy our senses, ad infinitum. So, but I said, well, that's not really the idea. The idea is that we go to Krishna, and people, even if actually desires, like I was bringing up some time ago, desires are like almost like a silent prayer. We're actually wanting something. A desire just means, let's say this guy, let's say George, right? Bhakti George. George wants a red Ferrari, right? Or let's just say something a little bit more practical. He wants a red Mustang, right? Car. Okay. Maybe a little more practical than Ferrari. Now, he may go to Krishna and say, oh, Krishna, please give me a red Mustang. Or he may just be desiring it. But again, desire is in some ways like a silent prayer, because prayer just means you're kind of putting it out there, like, hey, I want this. So therefore we have to be careful what we desire, because Krishna is a self-sufficient philosopher fulfilling everybody's desires since time immemorial. So, so if we have material desires, we engage in Krishna consciousness and serving Krishna, and whether we ask for those desires to be fulfilled or whether we're just hoping they'll be fulfilled, okay, that's there. But the idea is that by engaging in the intense devotional service of Krishna, eventually, over time, gradually, we become free from those material desires. So in one sense, it's a little tricky, right? Oh, just wherever you are, just go to Krishna, because eventually you'll get purified. Just like Dhruva Maharaj is the perfect example. He had humongous material desires, huge, right? To have a kingdom greater than his great-grandfather, it's a big material desire. It's not that he just wanted a house in La Jolla or something. He wanted he wanted a lot. So then he engaged in devotional service intensely, and then he got purified. And then Lord Narayan appeared to him, and then he said, "Oh, I don't want anything. I'm satisfied seeing you. I just want to serve you." So if we do have material desires, okay, we may accept that, or we may recognize that, but still we engage in Krishna's service, and then gradually, right, we become purified, and then we just, at one point just want to engage in Krishna's service. It's kind of long, drawn out. Sorry about that. But yet another.
Well,
Okay. Yeah. Yes, you could ask. Vijay Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Prabhu, the three modes of material nature are compared to strong ropes.
Yes.
Tying up the conditional living entity in the material world.
Yes.
So, this tying up is made in a very strong way. So
Yes.
My question is, and then for the conditional living entity to free himself, he needs the help of the untied person. So my question is, who is the untied person, and how much time it takes for the untied person to untie the tied up person?
Okay, the untied person is the spiritual master, or Krishna. Of course, spiritual master also means, Diksha spiritual master, Siksha spiritual master, and different spiritual masters. But in some ways, it's amazing actually who could untie the knots, because sometimes it may seem just like an ordinary person is untying knots, in our heart, cutting with their words. Just like, yeah, just like Bilvamangala Thakur, right? The whole thing is struggling to go see Chintamani, and he showed up there in soaking rain because of the rainy weather, and soaking, and he fell down. He's all scraped up and all this, difficult to go see Chintamani. She says, "Oh, what are you doing?" Bilvamangala, what? "Oh, I'm just coming here to see you," and right, beautiful Chintamani, and then she said, "If you had just as even a fragment of devotion that you have for me, if you had that for Krishna," she said, "you'd be a pure devotee." And that just changed his mind. Like, she just cut right there, cut through a bunch of illusion, and then he made his way to Vrindavan and became a pure devotee. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would read his books, and yeah. And anyways, I told that story the other day about the devotee who was before he was a devotee, he was attached to heroin for many, many years, and he would always pray to God, "Oh God, please help me with this. I'm attached." So then, although he was praying like that, and then he take some more heroin, and he would regret it. He's a pious person, actually. Pious people regret stuff. So he would regret it, and then he prayed to God, and he did it like that for years, praying. And then when I was talking to this devotee, I said, "Weren't you kind of getting discouraged that you're always praying, and hey, where was the fulfillment of, you're still struggling with addiction so many years, And he said, "Well, it's not that God wasn't trying to help me. He was, but I was very stubborn, and I couldn't take the help. Although I was praying for it, I couldn't take it, But then eventually he said that he was able to kind of reduce, and then he was going to a clinic to take methadone. It's like legalized heroin that, you know, the government provides people getting off of addiction. But people remain addicted to that their whole life, and it's addiction. I mean, you're taking it. I don't think you shoot it. I don't know what you do, but maybe you do shoot it. I don't really know. Don't have any experience. No, you don't shoot it. Some pills or whatever. But it's like you're on heroin practically. You know, throughout the day, you go there in the morning. You know, you take your pills, and it's unfortunate. It's still an addiction. So then one day when this person was going to the clinic, there was a social worker there. And he called him over, and he called him and he said, are you going to be doing this your whole life? You know, just coming here every morning, you know, getting your fix, going home. And this is, you know, in essence, he's saying this is pathetic. You know, you got to wake up. And then this person, he said, yeah, he's right. And he just stopped. He just stopped going. And then since then, he hasn't taken it, you know, years. You know, decades. So what I'm saying is that that man acted as a guru in the sense that he cut, you know, but when I was talking with this devotee, I was saying, you know, you're trying for so many years to get free from this, and, you know, weren't you getting discouraged of not seeing, you know, not getting help, it seemed. And then he gave the example, which is a common example actually in quite a number of religious circles, but that example of that, you know, there's a big flood, and then there's the man, he's on top of the roof, you know, oh, God will help me, God will save me, right? And then a boat comes by, hey man, hop on the boat. No, God will save me. And then a jet ski comes by, that's what they call it, right? Jet ski. Jet ski comes by. Hey, hop on. No, God will help me. A helicopter comes and he throws a rope in. Hey, man, grab the rope. No, God will help me. Eventually he drowns, right? So then he's there in heaven, and then he's speaking with God, and he says, hey, you know, God, what? I mean, I was depending on you to save me. And then, why didn't you save me? And then God said, well, I mean, I sent the boat, I sent the jet ski, I sent the helicopter. I mean, what else do you, I mean. So the devotee gave the example as that I was praying to God for help, true. And he was sending this way, that way, so many ways. But he said, I was just so stubborn, I couldn't see it. But eventually, he said he got through. And he got through this guy. The guy said, what are you doing, you know? So the spiritual, anyways, I'm kind of going off on the, just to kind of conclude with this, that the spiritual master, or even whoever it is, Krishna could work through people, they could cut those attachments. But of course it's said that the unbound has to untie the bound. But it doesn't mean that we just kind of sit back and, all right, I'm bound, now untie me, you know, cut the ties off. But it's an active thing. We have to put in the work. Just like Daivi Hesha Gunamaya Mama Maya Dharate Amameve Prapadinte Mayame Tam Tarantite, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. These three modes, which are like ropes, are very difficult to overcome. Maya is very difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered to me can easily cross beyond it. So we have to surrender to the spiritual master, and then there's the cutting process. Surrender the holy name of Krishna. So, all right. I think that...
Balaram Prabhu, if I may say it, spectacular answer to my question.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. All right.
One final note.
Yes.
This question about it seemed like Ayla, or Puruva,
Yeah.
spontaneously finally got disgusted. You know.
Yeah.
It doesn't say in the Bhagavatam what happened, but the conclusion, Krishna's telling this story in the Uddhava Gita, is that verse you quote at the beginning of the class, Tato Duksangam Utsaja. An intelligent person should therefore reject all bad association and instead take up the association of saintly persons whose words cut off the excessive attachment of one's mind. So Krishna's conclusion is that
He must have had some
help
sadhu
you along,
sangha.
help along the process.
He must have had some sadhu sangha. I mean,
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the conclusion Krishna's saying in the right. That's the way, you know. That's what he's mentioning. So, okay, what verse is that? Yeah, 11:26:26. Yeah, Tatadut Sungam Utsarija. Yeah. All right. All right, so today's Ekadashi. That means there's no burritos, but they did make breakfast, so we'll have breakfast. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.